Hello. So today I will give you a philosophical and economic overview of Bitcoin. And there is, of course, under the hood a lot of technical details, but don't worry, I will not go into that today. It's just about understanding the place of Bitcoin versus the rest of the financial system. And of course, I will cover how it helps with financial inclusion. So a little bit about me. I have a Master of Science in AI. And I worked as a technology consultant for a few years, and then I wrote sales copy for software companies. So I always had a technical interest and technical career. Then in 2016, I became the host of the Bitcoin meetup in Chiang Mai. So this has been running for 9 years now already. And almost every week, you get a group of Bitcoiners together, and we just have dinner, and we talk casually about Bitcoin and other related interesting topics. So if you get inspired today by Bitcoin and what it can do for you in your life, then you can always, of course, join us at the Bitcoin meetup. While I was hosting that meetup, I got interesting job opportunities. So for a few years, I worked in the blockchain industry. I organized the initial coin offering for a gaming company, and I worked for a wallet company, and I was community director of a local investment firm. And then after that, I wrote a book about this industry because it was very interesting what I saw. And I just spent a year and a half thinking about, like, what did I just see? And I wrote a book about that. And after that, I did 2 technology startups. And now I'm thinking what to do next. And in the meantime, I can keep explaining Bitcoin to people. What is wrong with ordinary money? So we use this fiat currency every day. We already saw from other speakers that it used to be gold or seashells, and now we can use QR codes. And it's all essentially the same thing. You are exchanging something for something else. But the way you do that is actually very important. And if you become a Bitcoiner, if you are interested in Bitcoin, then you become very keen on the differences between different types of money. And I want to share with you how a Bitcoiner views money. So if you maybe remember, some people here will keenly remember 2008. In most of the Western world, and probably also other parts of the world, there was this great financial crisis. And it was a consequence of corruption in the money system. And it's in the news, it always looks so nice, like there's these people in suits and they're bankers and they talk about how these things are supposed to work, and they look like they know what they're doing, but not really, because how come that the whole economy collapses all at once and banks go bust and they have to be bailed out, right? The solution is the fix, like print trillions and bail out the banks. They just create new money to pay for the money that has disappeared because of this collapse. Right? There were bad mortgages, and it was all a bunch of dominoes. And these banks, they fell, and they went bankrupt, and the government had to bail them out. And that's a choice that they made. They didn't have to do that. They could also say, like, well, if a company fails, if a bank fails, then tough luck, and the people that own the assets, they will just have to live without them. And it's something you could do, but they didn't do that. And all the people that are in this financial system, that are benefiting from this financial system, they essentially say, like, capitalism for me, but socialism for thee. Right? So if we make profit, then we keep it. But if we lose a lot of money all at once, then you guys just pay for it. And that is not really fair. And no one was really punished for creating this bad system. that fell apart. Only in one country, specifically in Iceland, did they say, okay, we're going to prosecute these bankers that are responsible for these bad financial products, and they locked them up. They went to prison. There was only one country. All the other countries, not a single banker went to prison. So not a single regulator who just looked the other way, or these rating agencies that have to decide what is the quality of this financial product. They have to put a stamp on it and say, like, this is AAA, AAA, right? Or like AAB, whatever. Like, they said, how reliable is this? And they just lied. And no one was punished for this. And that creates a sense of injustice in a large part of the population. So what is the core issue? It's that trusted third parties are the problem. So if you imagine that you have to do a financial transaction, for example, a bank transaction, an international transaction, scanning a QR code, you are dependent on an institution. So between the sender and the receiver, there is an institution that has to keep the books and say, like, okay, we debit the dollars or Thai baht from your account and we credit it to the other one's account. And you both, the sender and the receiver, have to trust this third party. So you have the first party, the second party, and the third party in between. And they have to be trusted. The government is in the same position because they create the money, or they guarantee the scarcity of the money, a level of scarcity, through the central bank. And you have to trust them to manage the total money supply. So if you have a salary at this level and they create more money, then, as we have seen in the previous presentation, you have more money chasing the same goods, so you actually have less wealth because your salary does not always keep up, right? So this is the key problem in the current financial system, that these trusted third parties, they are a threat. They are a security threat to the people that use the money. So it's maybe a coincidence or maybe not, but just 1 month after the biggest bank in America that was the victim of this crisis, the Lehman Brothers, fell, and roughly a month later, Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, he released this white paper that explained, okay, we can use a different type of money. So the breakthrough is that you can have digital money and there is no one in charge. So this trusted third party that I mentioned does no longer exist in this new monetary system. You have all the advantages of digital money, that you can very easily scan it with a QR code and pay for it, things. You can use it internationally. It doesn't matter what country you are in. If this country has internet and you can connect to the internet, then you can send money to that person in that other country just as easily as if they are sitting next to you. So it solves this problem of digital money being being useful in the ordinary system. In the ordinary system, we have digital money, but it is still this trusted third party. With Bitcoin, you have digital money that just works without a trusted third party. Now, this invention, it was really radical because before Bitcoin, you couldn't have something that is both digital and scarce. So you could, for example, like make a picture or a movie or a music song and just make an unlimited amount of copies and send it to 100 people. And that is what's good about the internet, what's good about digital information. But you cannot have a Thai baht or a dollar that is digital, because if I send it to one person, I can then still make a copy and send it to someone else and someone else. Right? So they call this the double spend problem. And Bitcoin solves that problem. So it creates a situation where you can have something that is both scarce and digital, because the record of who owns how many tokens of Bitcoin is globally distributed. It's a communal effort. There's people running computers that keep a record of all the transactions collectively. There is not one single entity or person or board that can control it. So it's made from new, like old ideas in computer science and cryptography, so for example, hash functions or public-private key cryptography, and computer networks and what they call proof of work. All these things already existed. But this anonymous inventor, Satoshi Nakamoto, he put these different technologies together in a way that make this new monetary network possible. And he explained it in a white paper, and then he and a few of his friends, they created this computer network a few months later, and it has been running since then without a break. Like all over the world, people are supporting the network. And it's an amazing invention because it solves this difficult problem of having to trust an authority. And people can collaborate on making this network work, and they know what is the truth of the ledger. Like this address has this much Bitcoin, this address has that much Bitcoin. It has moved from here to there, then and then, and everybody agrees on the state of the network. So it's not a company, there is no employees, there is no registration, there is no director or CEO. It's not an ordinary financial software product. It's an actual protocol for communicating value, for sending money, in the same way that, for example, the internet is a protocol for exchanging information. You can exchange money via a protocol with Bitcoin. So there's a few features of Bitcoin that make it absolutely unique. So both different from gold and from ordinary fiat currency, the modern money that we use now, and from other cryptocurrencies that have been invented and created after Bitcoin. Bitcoin really stands unique among all those different technologies. One of those features is that it is an absolute maximum amount of Bitcoin that will ever exist. You have 21 million. And those new Bitcoins, they are issued as a reward for supporting the network, making sure that the network is secure. That is done through a process of mining. It's a metaphor for essentially creating new Bitcoins and bringing them in circulation. Just similar to if you want more gold, then you have to actually dig for it. You have to work. You cannot just press a button or run a printing press and create more money when you feel you need it, like, for example, they did with the great financial crisis. In Bitcoin, you cannot do that. You have to actually support the network, and your reward will be one of these, like, will be a portion of these 21 million Bitcoins. And it's slowly mined, and most of them have already been created. And in 2140, there will be no more new Bitcoin coming in circulation. So we know exactly how much Bitcoin there is. And if you own part of a Bitcoin or multiple Bitcoins even, then you know for sure what is the percentage of ownership of the total amount. No one can create more of them. And that is something really interesting and valuable. That is a quality of money that you really want, that mimics the quality of gold. But as I explained before, Bitcoin is digital. So another very important feature is that you do not need anyone's permission to use it. For example, we saw earlier today some statistics about how many people do not have a bank account. They are unbanked or underbanked. And that problem does not exist with Bitcoin. You can just buy it. If you have a phone or a laptop or a computer, then you can just use Bitcoin. No one is stopping you from using it. And that can be very important, for example, for people fleeing a war situation. I personally know someone who fled Venezuela with all his wealth in Bitcoin, and he could build a new life when he came to a new country. I think maybe it was America. And I also know someone who is working with refugees from Myanmar, and they also use Bitcoin sometimes. So anyone can use it, and anybody can check that they are getting real Bitcoin and what is the history of the Bitcoin that they own. It's completely open and public. And it's also very robust. Right? You don't have a problem of a bank holiday, or, oh, it's the weekend, I cannot go deposit money, or, oh, the ATM is broken, I cannot use it today. No, Bitcoin keeps working 24/7, forever. It has been running for like 16, 17 years now, right? Since 2009, and no downtime. So if you take all these features together, then you have something very special and unique. It is digital sound money. And sound money, that is a term from economics that basically refers to money that is not easy to create out of nothing. Like, for example, the seashells or the gold. The seashells originally were not easy to create, so it was sound money. And then gold is even better, because it was a global standard at some point. And no one can just create more gold, so it is useful as money. It's sound money. And now, with Bitcoin, we have digital sound money. So I don't need to carry pieces of gold around and, oh, how am I going to send it across the ocean if I want to pay my supplier in another continent? Right? You can just do that with Bitcoin now. Or, of course, the international banking system. But then you are dependent on those third parties again. You have to trust them. And if you are just only in your own country, you have this really robust sense of trusting your own bank. Because they trust you, you trust them, usually there is no problem. But if you do international business, then you will very quickly find out how difficult it is to work with a bank in a different country. They are very obsessed with knowing everything about you, and sometimes they just block your account. And then they tell you, like, oh, you have to give us more information. And like, personally, when that happens to me, that makes me always very angry. And something I predict that some of you will probably become Bitcoiners because of something like that. If you start your career and at some point you will have an international transaction because you work for an international business or you run an international business, then that will happen. That you will have to do all this paperwork just to be able to move your money around. And it will feel very old-fashioned to you once you understand Bitcoin. So, one more thing. I want to point out how Bitcoin is different from cryptocurrencies more broadly. There's often this assumption that Bitcoin is just one of the many different cryptocurrencies, but that's not correct. It's a radically different category. It's a category error to put it together, because cryptocurrencies are more like tech startup and like software products. They are not really unique and scarce like Bitcoin, because they do not have this same consensus algorithm. They have different consensus algorithms to pretend that they are scarce. And they can be created by the founders, and there's the interest of venture capital that has to be served when they sponsor this project. So, and it's under central control. So it is actually very similar to the old financial system or ordinary shares that you can buy at the stock market from a company. So it's not really comparable to Bitcoin. Of course, it can have its own merit. Like if you make an interesting blockchain project and you try to do something with that. Like, for example, the project that I worked on, we wanted to create a digital economy inside of a virtual reality game. And you can use blockchains for that. And you can raise money by selling these coins. So it has its role, but it's not to be confused with what Bitcoin does. Because to get these extra features, like for example faster transactions, or be able to store data in certain ways, or have financial products that move around on it, you need to sacrifice some of the qualities that make Bitcoin special. So this conservatism that we see in Bitcoin of keeping all the things functioning in the way that it does, that is very different. And so you also see that you can never recreate something like Bitcoin because the circumstances of the creation was unique as well. So far, there is no real big cryptocurrency that has no leader. So the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, disappeared. He stopped sending people messages. And nobody knows who he is. And that's very important because no one can attack him there if they don't like Bitcoin. But these other cryptocurrencies, they always have a team, they have a leader. So it will be different. So yeah, and it's the job that they're doing. So Bitcoin is taking on a very big role of trying to separate money from the state so that you don't get these corrupt situations like, for example, in the great financial crisis in 2008. You want to move past that. And this requires that the state is not in control of the money. It is something that leads to too much corruption and a bad financial system. And a cryptocurrency that is not Bitcoin is just trying to do something very different. It's much smaller and limited. So that is my overview of Bitcoin for today. We have 3 minutes for questions. You can get a microphone from this gentleman over here. If you feel like questions, if you feel that you want to think about it a little bit more, of course, that's okay too. But I'm available for a bit. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.